Before we dive into the main topic, please take a moment to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, like this podcast, and leave a comment to support the channel. Your engagement truly helps. Welcome back to the deep dive. If I asked you to describe your life right now, your professional life, even your personal life, I'd bet the first word that comes to mind is busy.
Oh, absolutely. It's almost a default answer.
It is. We're all in this culture of just constant motion, bouncing from task to task, email to email, and then you crash into bed at night and you feel totally depleted.
Right.
But here's the thought, the really unsettling thought that our sources made us look at is that feeling of exhaustion from actual accomplishment. Or is it just from activity? Are you really making progress, or are you just, busy?
And that tension, that's exactly what we're digging into today.
Mm-hmm.
Our sources, they really boil this down to a simple and honestly a pretty devastatingly accurate idea.
Okay.
The idea that staying busy just drives activity
Mm-hmm.
while staying productive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the only real path to achievement.
That's a huge distinction. It's massive. Think
Right.
about it. It's the difference between, say, spending an hour mindlessly cleaning out your junk email, which feels like work,
It definitely does.
versus using that same hour to sketch out the core strategy for a huge project. One gives you this illusion of motion, but the other, that's what guarantees you're actually moving forward.
And that challenge, that's our mission for this deep dive. We've pulled out these key ideas from the source material, these nuggets of knowledge to help you break that cycle. Our goal is to give you the tools to avoid what the sources call, a little darkly, the monotony of life.
Right. By understanding when all that motion you're doing stops being just busy work and starts becoming real, meaningful progress.
Okay, so let's start there. Let's unpack this culture of constant activity. It's everywhere. And the sources are pretty blunt about it. They say people often choose to stay busy rather than stay productive.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that so interesting. Why? Why do we do that? Why do we gravitate toward the treadmill instead of the focused work that actually moves the needle? Well, I think a big part of it is it's a social thing, right?
Yeah.
Busyness is validated. When you say, I'm so busy, people nod, they respect it. It makes you seem important.
Right. It's like a status symbol.
Exactly. But productivity, that's harder. That requires you to stop and really ask, is what I'm doing right now the most important thing? And that's a tough question.
Mm-hmm.
So the sheer volume of tasks becomes like a defense mechanism against having to answer it.
So we default to what the sources call running on autopilot. It's just easier.
Precisely. So many people run on autopilot, doing tasks without thinking about their purpose. You get into this kind of functional trance where you just do the next thing on your list because it's there,
Not because it's the right thing to do.
not because it's strategic.
Mm.
Now, autopilot isn't always bad. I mean, it's how we drive a familiar route or brush our teeth.
Mm-hmm.
But the second you need creativity or strategy, autopilot becomes a real danger.
And that right there is the crisis point. That's why we're doing this. Because as long as we're just active, we feel like we're doing something. We're ticking boxes.
You get that little dopamine hit.
Totally. But the source is so clear. The problem arises when this constant motion replaces real progress. If you spend your whole day just doing things, replying to things, but there's no meaningful output, you're just spinning your wheels.
No matter how fast they're spinning.
And I think the tricky part is that our brains love simple metrics. I sent 30 emails. My brain says, great job, hard worker.
Yeah, but your brain isn't asking if any of those emails actually mattered.
Exactly.
And that's where intentionality has to come in. This is where we have to talk about action that is skillful, purposeful. The sources use words like adroit, which means skillful, clever, and admirable.
Admirable. I like that. So not just busy, but admirable.
Yes, work that's admirable because it serves a clear, higher purpose. And to get there, the sources suggest you literally have to engineer your life to create space for that kind of action.
What do you mean by engineer?
Well, they use this great metaphor of space. They say there's no room for mindless busyness. It's a zero-sum game. You can't fill your calendar with reactive, low-value stuff and just hope the important, skillful, admirable work will magically happen in the cracks.
You have to make the room.
You have to make the room. You have to intentionally push out the trivial stuff to make space for the profound. And that is the shift from just activity to real achievement.
So if the trap is this mindless motion, this autopilot, how do we get out? The sources say the antidote is to cultivate awareness. Now that can sound a little fluffy.
It can, but here it's actually very practical. Awareness in this context, it's about a few deliberate steps. And the first one is just knowing when to rest.
Which goes against everything our hustle culture preaches.
Completely. We think pushing through fatigue is a sign of dedication. But the sources imply the total opposite. Strategic rest is like preventative medicine for your brain. It prevents cognitive overload. Your brain needs that downtime.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate for a second, because I know what people are thinking.
Yeah.
If I stop, if I rest, won't I just look lazy? Isn't there this pressure to just look busy all the time?
That's a real fear, for sure.
Mm.
But we have to separate looking busy from being productive. Productivity is judged by outcomes, by results, and strategic rest actually guarantees better outcomes.
Okay.
And this is where it gets really interesting, especially if you're someone whose brain just never seems to shut off. The sources draw a direct line from a lack of rest to mental gridlock.
You mean overthinking everything?
Exactly. They're very specific. Rumination, or overthinking, is prevalent among those who never give themselves a break. This mental churning, this useless looping of thoughts, it's so common, so prevalent, because a brain that's starved of rest can't switch gears. It just keeps running the last program over and over.
That makes so much sense. That's why you can feel mentally exhausted after a day of what felt like easy tasks. Your brain was just spinning, not solving.
That's it. So how do you break that cycle? The solutions are actually really simple, no matter how severe the overthinking is. You need to do something that can take your mind off the problem.
Like what?
The examples they give are things like listening to music or going for a walk. It's not about an intense workout or some complex meditation. It's just about creating a simple change. That little shift in what you're seeing or hearing is often enough to unstick your brain.
And then the solution just appears.
And suddenly you come up with a solution or idea
Yeah.
that you just couldn't access when you were straining so hard to find it.
That connection is just, it's fascinating. And it really brings it back to our own habits. I know my tendency is to just push through. I'll finish one thing and immediately open my email without taking a breath.
Why all day?
But when it comes to high quality work, we have to cultivate that awareness of when our brain is actually solving problems and when it's just spinning in the mud.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing your own personal autopilot and knowing when to hit the brakes.
And that awareness, it means knowing yourself. What's your default setting? Do you procrastinate by doing easy, organizing tasks? Do you feel guilty if you take a break? Once you know your tendency, then you can consciously interrupt it. And of course, this whole internal fight, this battle between activity and awareness, is now happening on a totally new landscape, one defined by the emergence of technology.
Right, technology, the great enabler of distraction.
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
The sources have a more nuanced take on it. Technology isn't the enemy, it's an amplifier.
An amplifier, how so?
It amplifies whatever you point it at.
Ah, okay. The sources highlight this paradox. On one hand, yes, distractions have increased. Every ping, every notification is pulling you back to the busyness treadmill. But, and this is the crucial part, so have opportunities to slow down and work meaningfully. Technology gives us incredible tools for focus if we just choose to use them that way.
Think about it right. A notification is just an interruption pulling you toward low-value activity. But you can use that same phone to block all notifications, to set a timer for deep work,
Yeah.
to automate boring admin tasks. It's about who's in charge.
So you're talking about a kind of happy hustle, an idea of being engaged and directed, but not frantic, the total opposite of mindless busyness.
Exactly that. And the goal isn't just to free up time. That's the mistake people make. They free up an hour and then just fill it with more scrolling.
Or more low-value work.
Yes. The intention has to be to use that free time strategically. If you automate your invoicing, you don't use that spare 30 minutes to check the news. You use it to plan your next quarter. It totally shifts the value of that time.
So it's about building systems of intention, so that your default setting, your brain's default, becomes productivity, not just activity.
You're creating an environment, a technological one, where there is genuinely no room for mindless busyness.
Yeah.
Because you've already filled that space with something that matters.
You've chosen clarity over chaos.
That's a great way to put it. You've made a deliberate choice.
So we've really come full circle here. The ultimate goal from all this isn't just time management. It's to rewire your brain for productivity, to create a way of being where you prioritize skillful, adroit actions that lead to those admirable outcomes we talked about.
It really is a rewiring. And when you get there, that lack of room for busyness, it becomes a feature, not a bug. It protects your focus. It requires a daily choice to just step off the treadmill.
That was a really powerful way to look at how we value our time. So to recap for everyone, the critical line we have to guard is the one between busyness, which is just activity, and productivity, which is real achievement. And we learned that the main way to fight back against autopilot is to cultivate awareness. And a huge part of that is knowing when to rest so you can stop that crippling cycle of rumination.
And the implication of all this is it's pretty profound. By making good use of your time, you're not just hitting targets at work, you're actually holding the key to overcoming the monotony of life. If you let low-impact activity eat up all your best hours today, you're just guaranteeing that tomorrow will look exactly the same as yesterday. We have to stop measuring our worth by the length of our to-do list and start measuring it by the depth of our impact. So I'll leave you with this question. What one truly intentional achievement can you prioritize today to make sure your motion absolutely leads to progress?
Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, like, and leave a comment to support the channel.